Alright, so I like to talk a little bit about music theory, and we're going to be talking about how to construct scales, the major scale and the minor scale, how to calculate them in terms of the formula, a good way to visualize them so that you could picture them somehow in your mind, and then we'll sort of do some calculations for other scales here, and and that will be pretty good. So basically, we have the major scale, and everything in music kind of stems off the major scale. So that's the foundational layer of music theory, is the major scale. So if you're looking at chord formulas, scale formulas, things like that, it's all based off of the major scale. So that's why we're going to start there first. So that way when I explain the minor scale, you'll already understand the major scale. I don't know, it's kind of weird, man. So, first we have to realize that the notes have different spacings apart. When we write the letters C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, you can picture these as the white notes on the piano, right? Now, if you're just looking at the white notes, they're all like one space apart, right? It's like, okay, you go to the next one over and it's just one space apart all the time. But you're forgetting the black notes. You see, there's not a black note in between every white note. There's only a black note in between some of the white notes. And there is no black note between the E and the F, and also the B and the C. So basically there's a black note in between here. Put one there. There's a black note here, 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 and here. This is if you're looking at it on a piano. There's a black note in between these notes. So you can see how, if you ever looked at a piano, you see two black notes and then three black notes, as in a grouping of two black notes and three black notes. So when I'm looking at this piano, I'm like, well, I know what the letters are, because, well, there's no black note in between these and also these. There would be one afterwards, one before it, none before it, so it goes B over here. Well, anyway, so that's why there's different spacing. So there's a formula. You see, it goes 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. And that's the formula for a major scale. So anytime we're going to calculate this, we now have a formula. And we actually have a sort of a visual example that I can even share, because when I'm looking at it on a guitar, I don't even think about the formula too much anymore. I just think about the shape of it. Like, it actually looks like something. And that's because if I play it on the guitar, for me, it's, 8, 10, and 12. Now, I don't have it's a little bit early, so I don't want to put the amp on, but it's basically an 8, 10, and 12 on the 6th string. So 8, 10, 12. Now, next string, it's 8, 10, 12, and then a 9, 10, and so you can kind of hear that 8, 10, 12, 8, 10, 12, 9, 10. So I can actually visualize this as a block, and I see it as sort of two big blocks, 8, 10, 12, 8, 10, 12, and that's just kind of stacked one on top of each other. So I know that in between there's only one space, so I have to sort of make that happen. 8, 10, 12, 8, 10, 12, and I see how they're just like stacked right on top of each other. Okay, now I know that there's another piece at the end here, which is a BC right over here. You can just see how it's I just have to make sure that the very last note is only one space off of the root. So there's one space there at the end. And that's basically how I visualize the major scales. And the nice thing is, on the guitar, you can just move this down. If I go to A, it's the same exact shape. 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9, and then there's that little thing right there at the end. 6, 8, or 6, 7 right here. So 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9, 6, 7. Okay. Two big blocks, and then one thing that's shoved in like that. Very small little piece. So this is good, because now I can actually like visualize the A major scale if I wanted to. So okay, let's take a little bit of time to calculate some major scales. I'll just write some letters on the board. We'll start with A. So for A, what we have to do is first make the first big block right here, and of course the first three letters are A, B, C. So let's just write those down. A, B, C. Now I know that in between the B and the C there's only one space, so I notice up here it's sort of close together, but down here I had to shove it out here, and so that's when we do that we call this a sharp. So I just move this letter forward a little bit in order to fit this shape, okay? Now, then we got D, so D is D, and there's one space, we're cool there, so D, E, F. Now, again, here with the F, notice over here, the F is one space apart from E. I had to shove it out here in order to make it fit the blocks, fit the formula. Now, when we do that, again, we have a sharp. Okay, so this is pretty simple. And then finally at the end here, I know that the G and the A have to be one space apart. And that's not correct. If I look over here, that is two spaces apart. So again, I have to sharp this one to shove it up close to the A. I also know that from F sharp, if I go two spaces for the very last thing, well, if I go two spaces, it's F sharp, G sharp. It's not F sharp, G, that's only one space. Notice over here, basically, when you go from a sharp to a normal note, it's one space. Okay, so that was great. Let's do the same thing for B. So there's a B. Now we go, let's put the first three letters, B, C, D. So obviously, this BC, this has to be sharped. And now you're thinking, well, C sharp D, again, this is just one space, right? But you have to go two, so C sharp, D sharp. Now we have an E, F, and G. So again, here the case is, this is only one space apart, E and F. Okay, so we have to sharp this F. The case here is F sharp, G sharp, because we go two across. All right, and then finally we have the A at the end. And we return to the B, and notice this is again two spaces apart, so we have to sharp the A. G sharp, A sharp. Okay. It's funny how my letters start really big over here and get really small over here. I can actually feel this. Anyway, whatever. So then we're gonna have to do a what's the letter after C? We have a D. Okay. So we've got a D, E, F. All right. I know that between the E and F, what happens? We have to sharp the F. Then we go G, A, B. So I think we're actually cool right here. G, A, B. Now we have a C, D. And of course, between C and D, there's actually two spaces, so we have to sharp the F, sharp the C, in order to make it only one space. So this is how you just easily calculate these scales. Now, you might have to do this many, many times in order to be able to do this at a faster speed, but this is, you know, the slow way. E, F, G. So we just write the letters down. We have to sharp this F, correct? Because between those, there should be two spaces. F sharp, G sharp, two spaces. Then we have an A, a B, and a C. Between A and B, we have two spaces. Here, this is one space, so we have to sharp the C. Finally, we have the D and E. And of course, here, we have to make sure that these two are only one space apart. We have to sharpen the D, C sharp, D sharp, same concept. Okay. So that was it for major. I mean, I just did a couple extra scales, and the video is already getting pretty long, so I just want to you know, finish this up here. So let's go to the minor side now and just calculate some minor scales. Well, first let's look at the formula for minor, because we haven't even talked about the formula for minor. Now you can see that the blocks here at the top are actually smaller. All right. Now that means that, well, on the guitar, well, what it means is basically that the third and the sixth are flattened from the 3 flat and 6 flat. These notes have been flattened in relationship to the major scale. So once you get good at calculating major scales, you start to see the big block, big block. We'll now take the end of the big blocks and cut them off, okay? Because we've now flattened this thing. Instead of the sharp pushes that direction, right? The sharp pushes us forward. Well, the flat takes us backward. So we have to take that third note and just kind of shove it backwards into the second note. As you can see, we have 2 spaces here between these, and then only 1 space here. That makes this minor, the minor third. And of course we have the minor 6th as well. The same concept happens. We just kind of shove this 6th into the 5th. So we've got 2 sort of shorter blocks here, and I could sort of put this little dash here to mark that the last note of those has been flattened. And then we head into a 2 spacing, 2 spaces and 2 spaces to sort of end off the minor scale. Whereas over here, it's 1 space. Over here, it's 2 spaces at the end, and over here, it's 1 space at the end. Now, you could also kind of, okay, so that's good. Essentially, we flattened the 7th too. But anyway, it doesn't matter too much. Now, let's go and calculate some minor scales. So I'm going to go, actually, before I do that, got to show you this on the guitar. So it's the 5-7-8, 5-7-8, and then 5-7. 5-7-8, 5-7-8, 5-7, and again this sort of gives us the block, the small block, and then 2 spaces on the last one. Interesting, you could just kind of see this. Here's the major for A. I've got 2 big blocks, and then the last little chunk there. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. And then here I've got the minor, which looks like this. It just has like a shape, and so when I'm calculating scales, I think shape. I don't actually think about the 2-2-1, 2-2-1 formula. That's when I first started understanding this. I was like, well, yeah, that's the only formula I had. But now I know this on the guitar, so I actually have an easier way to calculate these shapes. So I'm going to go for a B. Let's try the B minor scale. And so we start with the first 3 letters, B, C, D. And I'm just putting them in the proper position. But I noticed that between B and C, I mean, usually this is just 1 space, right? So I have to make this a sharpened C. Okay, then I head to I have to go 2 spaces for this last one. So E, F, and G. Alright, so again I have to sharpen this F in order to make this correct. And now I go 2 spaces to an A and 2 spaces to a B. And then I have my B minor. We're going to try this for C. So I go C, D, and E. Now as you can see, the E is actually 2 spaces off from the D, so we have to flatten this E. And that's basically what this whole, you can see how the C, D, E, this is the normal major scale. And then we have to flatten the E to shove it up against the D. Okay, so that's the minor C, and this is the major C. So you can sort of see here now. We have to go 2 spaces, so we're going to go to an F, which is cool, a G, and a A. Now for A, notice here the A is actually 2 spaces off. For the G, we have to shove this A in to flatten it. Alright, and now from A flat, if I go +2, it's B flat. Just the same concept. You can't, yeah. Hopefully that makes sense. From B flat to C. And we're good. Now let's try the D. So D, E, F. Now actually that's all perfect. D, E, F. There's only 1 space between E and F, so we don't have to actually do anything with this. G, A, B. Now you might notice the A and the B. We have to flatten that B to shove it up against the A, because normally there's 2 spaces in between A and B. So we have to flatten the B. Now we go B flat, C, and yeah, B flat C is correct, because if we flatten the C, all of a sudden this is 1 space. Anyway, so C to D ends the scale. 2 spaces apart. And we'll try just one more because I like doing this. It's kind of interesting the way that I've thought of this. I never actually drew out these boxes. This is the first time I sort of saw this like that. Usually I just use the guitar as a reference point, but now the boxes just make this so interesting. Anyway, we'll try just one more. We got E, and we'll do E minor, so E, F, G. So between the F and the G, well, between the E and the F, we have normally one space, so we have to sharpen the F. This is the F sharp. Okay, from G, A, we're good. We have two spaces, and we do have to make sure that there are two spaces here. That's why when I go from E flat and I put an F down, well, I know that it's right. So we go A, B, C, and we're actually totally cool there. We notice that the B and the C is just one space apart. This is fine. So then we end it off with a D and an E. All right. So there you have it. That's how you calculate scales, and it's quite easy when you think of it with these pattern shapes, these shapes on the guitar. And it's going to be nice. Okay, hope you enjoyed this video.